Welcome to the Lobster Talks, where we go smart, fast, and technical with the world's most interesting founders. I'm your host, Gabriel Jarrison, founder, operator, and venture investor. And today I'm speaking with George Simons from SoloSuit, a startup quietly dismantling a 3.5 billion legal racket that screws over millions of Americans every year. So if you've ever wondered what it takes to fight Goliath and win, this is for you. George, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here, Gabriel. Thanks for having me
I'm
on.
excited because what you're doing is really interesting. It's working really well for a lot of people. So I've sort of teased what you guys do. You're fighting the system. But please introduce yourself and introduce what Solo does.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm George Simons. I'm the founder of Solo. We help people resolve debt, and we've we kind of expand our thinking in this process. So how we think about what we're doing right now is we're helping consumers connect with collectors to get their debt resolved. Right. So I think sometimes in the space there can be some racketeering going on, some questionable things, but a lot of times, and most of the time, it's really just creditors trying to collect on their legitimate debts that are owed to them by consumers and by borrowers in this situation. So when a consumer gets sued for a debt, they use our first product, SoloSuit, to create their response and get it filed in court. And then most people recognize that they owe the debt that they're being sued for. So like a legitimate debt. So then they want to settle the debt. So we've created our next product, Solo Settle, that connects the consumer with the collector, making it easy for them to settle. And really at this point, we have like a whole operation that's focused on building our relationships with collectors, gaining trust with them. We brought on Yale Levy, who's the president emeritus of the past president of the National Creditors Bar Association. He was a debt collector for 20 years, ran a great law firm collecting debts from consumers, really helping them uh, figure out a way to repay the debts that they owed. And that's been a key part of our business is really building those relationships with people.
That's really cool because if I repeat what you just said, you
Mhm.
started, and I remember that because I've known you for quite some time. You've started as only, I'm putting quotes because when I say only, it sounds like it's not a good thing. It's a great thing, but you started only with helping people actually answer a lawsuit that they got because you gotta answer in 30 days, I believe, and people are panicking. Oh my god, I just got sued, and they go online and they find Solo and they say, okay, help me answer. I don't know if you knew at the time, but what you uncovered along the way is actually people need to answer yes, but they need to resolve and maybe settle on that debt. Settling is great because you end up paying less, but also the lawsuit drops and goes away. I'm also guessing that AI can help negotiate, probably. And so you've uncovered this much bigger business. It's bigger for the customer, gives them provides a better service. It's also better for you because you're making more money from that, I think. So it's really a win-win. How did that discovery go? Or did you knew from the very, very first day that this is where you were going?
Yeah, it's definitely been a process of unraveling the problem and better understanding the problem, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, where we started is in law school. The Utah courts gave us a data set of like just some interesting court data that we looked at as law students. I was working with a professor at the time, and we found that debt collection cases are the biggest category of cases in Utah. And most of the time, people don't have an attorney in those cases, so they just automatically lose their case. And that we kind of saw that as a problem because the U.S. like justice system is based on advocacy, and if one party isn't advocating for themselves and they also don't have an advocate, then it's not going to go well. There's just going to be this power asymmetry. The judge doesn't interfere. The judge is not a referee. The judge just makes decisions based on what the advocates bring to them. And so we kind of saw this problem. Then we made a free software for people to use to create an answer document and then and just create the answer, and then they'd file it themselves in court. And from there, we've just really been following what the consumer, what the customer needs. So we found that filing was a big pain point for them. So we offered a filing service. We found that they wanted to talk with an attorney. They wanted an attorney to review their document to make sure that they're doing the right thing. We added an attorney review. And then we found that, sure, there are some mistakes that are made. Some people don't owe the debt. Like sometimes there's a case of identity theft where someone stole their identity, opened up the credit cards under their name, and then got a lot of debt, and then they got sued for that debt. Uh, so in that case, right, they should be able to get the case dismissed with like a police report showing that they have identity theft. On the occasion, the wrong person gets sued. Uh, but so what we found is that most people agree that they owe at least a portion of the debt, at least like the principal amount on the debt, and they want to pay that back. They feel like they have an obligation to pay it back. So we created Solo Settle to make it easy for them to connect with the collector and pay it off. And in that process, then collectors kind of became a customer group for us as well. We talked with collectors and found that their ideal outcome for these debts is to settle as well. So
That's
we're
really
just
crazy.
now, yep. So now what we're really focused on doing is increasing the information and increasing the trust between the parties with Solo Settle as a mediator between the parties, and really working towards instant debt resolution where people can just resolve debt immediately and start making payments back on their debts at a good deal that works for them.
Several things are so interesting. One is you didn't have a preconceived idea. You kept sort of following what your customers were asking you. The market pulled you in a direction. That's perfect. That's the most amazing product market fit. What's also very interesting is you uncovered something that everybody wants to settle, but they didn't know. Without you in the middle, the person that's sued wants to get rid, but is honest and wants to pay the debt and settle, but the creditors want to settle as well. It's so much better for them than to actually go through the lawsuit. So this is
Right.
so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Okay, two plugs before we keep going. One, my team reminds me at this stage of the show to say to our listeners, hey, if you're not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. But now yourself, George, I think you have is it a what's going on? You're giving away some cash. Tell me what's happening.
Yeah, we have a giveaway. Yeah, so we we found that on average, people are sued for $4,700 in the U.S. is the average amount of a debt lawsuit in the U.S. And that is these debt lawsuits are the primary activity that occurs within state court systems. So the biggest category of cases inside a state court is debt collection lawsuits.
Wow, crazy.
And yep, and this $4,700 to some people that sounds like a huge amount of money. To some people that sounds like a small amount of money. For the reality for our consumers, it is uh, about four times. It's many times more than their bank account balance each
For
month.
sure.
I believe
Yeah,
it's
for
80%. I believe
90,
it's 80% of their monthly income.
yeah, for 90+% of Americans, this is a lot of money for sure.
Right. Yep. And so what we have decided to do is do a $4,700 giveaway, so people can just come onto our site. There's no cost or nothing needed to sign up. You just put your name down, sign up, and at the end of the month, here in a few days, we're giving some lucky person $4,700 to go towards their debt payments.
I hope I hope it's me. No, I don't hope it's me. I hope it's someone that comes from this show. Okay. If
Right.
you hear about the giveaway here and you win, come back and put a comment so we will know. Okay, so where can people find the giveaway? I'll link it in the comments, but what's the best place to find it as well if you're listening on the podcast, on the go?
Yeah, let's link it here on the show. Right now, it's pretty straightforward. You just go to solosuit.com. So the company name is Solo. We were formerly SoloSuit, so it's SoloSuit.com. And then you just click the banner at the top. There's a banner at the top of the website, very hard to miss. It's orange. You just click that.
Orange. I like that color. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Awesome. So giveaway. All right. Back to what we were saying. So you, at the beginning, I'm guessing, help the small individuals fight back against some very big organizations who just maybe want to just take all their money, and they're happier probably if that person doesn't know how to fight back. Then you come in and you give them the tools to actually defend themselves. Did you did you get some pressure? Did you make some very big players angry? What happened when you stepped into that world and say, I'm going to defend the individual Americans?
Yeah, we've made people super angry. Yes. Definitely people have become angry, and some people love us, some people are angry. Uh, I think the anger that has been caused, I think, has largely been a misunderstanding. And really, we actually spend quite a bit of time reconciling relationships with people that have been angry at us right now. So one of the big things that we're doing currently is we're doing a national tour of the U.S. We're going to all of the major cities in the U.S. and visiting debt collectors across the U.S. in person, debt collectors, creditors, debt collection law firms, sitting down, having dinner with them, having lunch with them. And we're doing this with Yale Levy, who's in the past like president of the main industry association, and explaining to them like how we are helping both parties, right? And it's pretty confusing. Understandably, it's confusing for people because in litigation, it's such an adversarial space. It's usually People usually have a tendency to think about it as a win-lose situation or a winner takes all situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But what we see ourselves is as a mediator between the parties, and we actually see that there's a win-win. We've recognized, we've understood that both parties actually want the same thing. They just want an ideal settlement as fast as possible. They can all agree on the fast as possible part. Understanding and figuring out what exactly an ideal settlement is kind of the hard part. I mean, it's all hard, but that's kind of like the question mark in these transactions. And so what we're doing is we're increasing the information, increasing the trust between the parties. So, for example, with increased information, so consumers right now they connect to Solo and they present to us like their financial position, their financial situation. We understand it. We use AI to assess their financial position, understand how much money they're making a month, how much money they're spending a month, what their debt to income ratio is, how much disposable income they might have, how much essentially determining how much money can they put towards this debt, right? So we understand their cash flow position as well as like more of their balance sheet position. Like, do they have a bunch of money locked up in an account somewhere that they could use? Do they have a retirement account? How much money can they put towards resolving this debt? Because we understand resolving the debt's what they want to do. And so that's like something that we're doing to increase the information because we have this trust with the consumer. We'll increase the information and then kind of present this the capability of the consumer to the collector so that the collector doesn't need to go back and forth. Right now in the industry, it's just a positional based bargaining situation where the collector will say like, essentially the collector might just go back and forth on several rounds of negotiation. They might start high, then eventually work a little bit lower. And they'll just go back and forth because they don't actually know how much the consumer can put
Hmm.
towards the debt. Whereas with Solo as a mediator in between, we're able to figure out how much the consumer can actually pay. And then we can just get towards it. We can just get towards the ideal settlement as soon as possible. We also understand what the collector is willing to settle for based on their creditors' requirements. So we can just get towards a settlement ASAP.
Maybe it's important to, because of course, you do this every day, and I know this because you've explained to me before, but it's interesting to remind the listeners why actually creditors actually want to settle for less. So, let's say I get sued, I owe $1,000. It's real money that I owe. I don't, I haven't paid. But then the creditor is probably interested in me settling my debt today for, let's say, $600. Maybe that's not the right amount, but whatever. So that might be odd for a listener who doesn't understand what's behind it. Why are they actually happy to do that instead of actually going through with the lawsuit?
Yeah, it's because of the costs, and it's very similar to the dynamics in any type of litigation, where most cases where both parties have advocacy, have like an attorney representative, most cases settle, right? It's like above 90% of cases settle before going to trial. It's just because of the cost and it's because of the risk. So winner, if a case goes to trial, it is literally a winner takes all situation. The judge will make a ruling. One party wins something or everything, and one party loses entirely. It's never really a split deal. Uh, so it's just there's strong incentives to settle. And for the creditor, like what that looks like is, let's say the creditor has $1,000 debt. They're trying to collect from the consumer before a lawsuit, they might be willing to settle that debt for 45% of the balance. So they might be willing to settle it for $450. After they go to a lawsuit to try to collect, they're no longer going to be able to settle for 45%. They're going to want to settle for probably at least 70% because their costs just went way up because they had to pay for an attorney to
Yeah.
file the lawsuit. And then once the lawsuit's filed, sure, they might settle for 70%, but once the lawsuit is lost, if they win and then they have to go forward with garnishment. Garnishment costs a bunch of money. So they'll have to like settle for more after that. Once the garnishment's filed, they won't really be able to settle for anything other than the full balance. Uh, so those are kind of like the economics. Basically, cost just increases as the case goes on. So they want to settle earlier.
All right. Very cool. Something I would like to touch on as well, because I've always been very impressed with you for doing that. And you're actually, I talk often, you don't know this, I'm telling you, I often talk about you as an example of someone who's really figured out go to market and customer acquisition and automated customer acquisition. Because, and let's not reveal all of your secrets, but it's one thing that I love about startups that I invest into is, can they get customers while they're sleeping? That's something I say all the time. And so your approach, I think, or one of the approaches that you had was SEO, going on Google and ranking for things that people type. Oh my God, I just got sued by X. Please help. And then boom, you show up. What's really fascinating to me is you got this idea from your previous role at a different financial related company, saw that it worked there and decided to learn it and apply it to Solo. Hopefully I got this right, but can you tell me the story? When did you figure out that this was a recipe to actually build an amazing startup for yourself? And anything I'm missing in that story?
Yeah. For me, SEO marketing clicked. It just made a lot of sense to me. So right, so I did some content marketing for another Y Combinator company, Simple Citizen. They were in the legal tech space and learned a bit about content marketing from them. Also, I had just some other content marketing jobs, and I tried to learn what I could from the people I was working with, and then ultimately applied that to Solo, and that was our first and now our best and strongest customer acquisition channel. And we do get customers while I sleep. Got quite a few of them last night, as well as fast asleep. And
That's very cool. That's very, very cool.
yeah, yep. And uh, what I what I did, I applied the book Traction. I think high fast growth for startups or something along those lines. And it's a great guide. Essentially applies the agile or like the lean startup methodology to marketing, where the concept is just determine the marketing channels that exist for you. It's probably about 20 channels, and then cycle through each one or just run an experiment on each channel until you find one that performs well or a lot better than any of the other ones. And for us, like the first channel was YouTube. I just shot a YouTube video in my spare bedroom of an office, very low fidelity, just my MacBook webcam, and it just performed really well. Like before that, I'd cycled through some other channels like direct marketing, direct mail, direct phone calls. Uh, just the YouTube video worked real well and converted at a high rate, and that video still performs really well. It's one of our best performing videos to this day, and it's just like a how to respond to a debt lawsuit video.
Your very first video is the best performing?
I think it's still the best performing video.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. It's
Because
the very
I have
first
a
video.
YouTube channel. I've had several YouTube channels, but I can tell you my first video is horrendous. So wow, impressive. You have some talent there.
But yeah, we have other ones that are performing well also, but I think the first one really just kind of nailed it. And then we got into like SEO, found out that articles are ranking well also. And the thing I like about SEO is that it's a little bit of an open book to see what other people's SEO strategies are, just because it's usually pretty apparent from their website. You can use SEO tools to look at people's websites and
That's
kind of like
cool.
figure out their strategy. So it's kind of like all there. And we just got like replicated best practices, and that's been working well for us.
So actually, I got it completely wrong, and thank you for correcting me. My view was, oh, you got all in on SEO. That's not the case. SEO is working well, but you're a try and test kind of guy, which is the best kind of entrepreneurs. And you tried a
Yep.
bunch of different things. And it's not only SEO, it's also YouTube, and you've tried a bunch of others. And so, to any founder listening, and actually, even some very talented YC founders don't do that. I get asked that from my portfolio companies sometimes, like, oh, how can I accelerate my growth? And I tell them, it's so simple. I tell them, do a bunch of videos on YouTube, do a bunch of SEO and blog posts and stuff. And it's so simple, but of course, in a busy life, of a founder, like, oh, I need a camera and I need to YouTube, and what am I going to say? And they never do it. And YouTube, for me, has been transformational, mostly on my very first channel in French. Now I'm building a channel for this podcast plus a solo channel in English. YouTube is insane. It belongs to Google, so it's also SEO. It actually, YouTube videos rank on Google pages. There's so many amazing things with Google and with and with YouTube. And you probably know this, George, as well, is that now people are trying to rank into AI tools so that when people are asking ChatGPT, hey, I just got sued, what could I do? ChatGPT recommends, hey, you should go and use Solo. And from what I've heard so far, this is pretty similar than SEO. If you have a strong SEO, you're gonna have strong recommendation by AI engine. So you're already ahead for this next race. Like, you're in such a great position. I would be very excited to be you. Let's go back. I want to do a small tactical deep dive on customer acquisition. Let's go. I mean, we just started, but let's go back to before you had all of this going for you, because right now you have a machine working for you while you sleep. Tell me about the first 100 users. How did you go about that? How did you convince them that you were serious? Take us back.
Yeah. And let me take both angles, right? Because we think about collectors as one of our customer bases as well, because SoloSettle is a marketplace
Yeah,
where
of course.
uh, right, we have the collectors and we have the consumers. So we're serving both of them. Yeah, so going back to the consumers, the first 100 customers, and the first 100 customers for us came in over uh, a few months, right? So the first customers, we managed to get some PR at launch, which was great. Just the
That's
impact
cool.
aspect of the story, and that we were heavily backed by BYU was helpful for the local news story side. Kind of like someone inadvertently leaked the story to a friend at NPR, and he ran the story locally, and then it got picked up by national NPR. So there's quite a bit of it was a pretty good splash at the launch. And that got us a lot of test users that just used our free tool that kind of came through on like the first day. I think the first like real customer I think came in that first week, and then Uh, and then
It's
after
already
that,
quite
so
impressive.
yeah, people
Sorry,
were
it's
coming in like the first week, like immediately upon launch, people were coming in. Yeah, I
it's
think
impressive.
our actual first customer is actually a pretty high profile person in Utah, which I think was interesting. So it's just interesting to see him kind of come through and use the product to respond to a debt lawsuit. You know, people our demographic really is people across the board in the U.S. And then paying customers, what we did is I contracted with I'm like somewhat technical. I'm not a software engineer, but I contracted with an engineer to basically just integrate Stripe into the product and offered a standard version in addition to the free, and then a premium version in addition to the other two, just to see if people would pay for them. And then people came in and totally paid for them. Yeah, people just came in and paid for them. I didn't really have any of the infrastructure set up. I just, for the standard version, I would just file. It was the filing of the document, and I'd never filed a legal document before. And someone came in and paid for that, and then I took the document and figured out how to get it filed.
You're
For a
thinking, oh my
while.
God, like what do I do now?
Yeah, but then for the premium thing, I didn't have an attorney set up because attorneys are really too busy to talk to me in my position. So I didn't have an attorney arranged. But once someone paid for the premium, I went out and found an attorney to review the document. And like for the first 100 customers, I was just filing documents from our post office on campus at BYU. I would just like
Wow,
print out documents and go and take them and file
that's just so
them.
fun. That's
Is
so
what we were
cool.
doing. Yep.
And then you wanted to get to, so, after years and years and years of helping individuals, now you're helping creditors as well. You consider them as you, I mean, and they are considered as your customers. Um, Must have been a very different journey to acquire them, probably.
Yeah, for the collectors, yes, yeah, very different. Yep. So we're now like a business that's right today. We've helped people with like 1.9 billion dollars in debt at this point. So 1.9 billion dollars. We've had
Wow.
nearly 300,000 people use the platform, and working with collectors, it was a pretty similar thing. So uh, I've we've subscribed to the both bottom up and top down strategy. That. I've heard it said that that's crucial for enterprise plays. But on our marketplace, we have like a fairly unsophisticated consumer on one side, and then we have a very complex set of enterprises on the other side, including law firms as well as the world's largest banks on the other side of the marketplace. And so there we're doing both bottom up and a top down. Like the bottom up is essentially make it really easy for just like the person on the floor of the collections organization to engage with the product. And top down is, we build relationships with the CEOs and the executives of these organizations. We meet with them in person, just build a relationship with them. And both of those strategies working together has been crucial.
Very cool. You're doing, again, testing, iterating, trying different approaches.
Right.
That's really, it's actually tied to my next question because you're not the type. You started quite a while back, like not 10 years ago, but it's been what, 4, 5 years or something. And so you're
Yeah.
not the explosive growth kind of startup. I mean, you sort of are because the numbers now are insane, but you've mostly been sort of slow and steady, right? And that's tied, I think, to your philosophy of saying, hey, let's try a little bit of everything and see what works. But then you end up, you end up with huge numbers, like you said, 1.9 billion and 300,000 people. Is that sort of on purpose? Because many YC startups, they're thinking, I want to do 10 million tomorrow morning, right? And of course, it's just wishful thinking, but they have this sort of sense of urgency. Maybe you have it as well. I don't know, but you've been growing slowly and steadily, but for years, and so it compounds. It's like you're more the Warren Buffett than the, Elon Musk or whatever, whoever. But like Warren Buffett style, where it's slow and steady, but at the end it's huge. And this is it seems, at least so far, I mean, there's been some explosive growth too. Anyway, is that conscious, or are you trying to go as fast as you can anyway? Am I reading this wrong? Tell me what you think.
Uh, yeah, I imagine every founder has their own take on all of this. For me, the most important thing for me is helping the customers and solving their problem. That's the most important thing for me. Uh, because of the nature of our business, we're one of the few people serving the consumer in this position. Like really, almost nobody else helps out a consumer in this position besides us. I think it's really important for us to stay in business. So I think like the worst outcome for us is that Solo goes out of business. I think perhaps some founders think the worst outcome for them is growing too slowly, right? So I think some founders would
That's
be
not
more
true.
more
Yeah.
yeah, would be more prone. I think some founders would be more prone to shut something down and just like kind of want their business to go out of business if they aren't growing uh, at like a pretty insane speed. For us, we're most interested in just staying in business. That's like thing number one, and then uh, number two, beyond that, is definitely how do we make this like the top platform in the world for doing what we're doing. And I think oftentimes getting there, it's the reality behind a lot of startups is that they've been around for a long time. And then after, after 5, after 10 years, then at some point something huge happens and they just grow a lot, right? That sometimes that happens at year one, sometimes that happens at year 10. Uh, I think the story in our backyard is Qualtrics. That's like a really big success story in Utah where I live. And my understanding, summarizing their success, is like they were bootstrapped for a long time. They had quite a bit of like family capital, I think, to put into the business, but they were more of like the slow and steady growth for a long time. And then at some point, they just grew an enormous amount. People heard of them, and then they realized that they're like a multi-billion-dollar business. But oftentimes, those great success stories really do take a lot of time. And yeah, in regards to like the Warren Buffett, perhaps I'm a little bit unusual in this. I prefer to think about Solo as my family's sole source of income for the next 100 years, is how I prefer to think about it. So I definitely want Solo to remain in business uh, forever and to keep on growing forever.
It's fascinating because it almost sounds conservative, and I actually don't think it is, because I know the numbers. I've been following you for quite some time. It sounds super conservative, like, oh, it's a terrible business to invest into because it's growing very slowly. That's not the case at all. It is actually. So many founders, and I've seen this before as well, I've invested in such businesses that are such in a rush to grow super quickly. They want to do 50, 100% every month, even when they're reaching millions in revenue. And so they burn through a lot of money and they put the company at risk. And then sometimes they explode mid-flight. And I've seen this happen. I made a video on this on my other channel just 2-3 weeks ago. One of my best investment ever was growing like crazy. And then it was early 23. They signed a $25 million term sheet. The money never came. The burn was high and they exploded and the company went to zero. And so you're not at risk of this happening. I'm pretty sure that you have close to infinite runway. I don't want to spill any, secrets, but I'm pretty sure you have almost infinite runway. And so you can be here for the next 99 years without raising again. But I want to highlight behind your comment that the numbers are nothing to be, to be embarrassed by. The numbers are still impressive. That's the cool thing. And so at YC, the partners say all the time, don't die. That's your number one thing. Just don't die. And some founders, they forget don't die and they just remember grow fast, but they want to grow so fast that they die. And if you stay around, you said after 10 years something explodes, but even every year, every month, every day, what you do compounds. The content, like you said, the SEO, the YouTube, you have your own podcast as well. Everything grows and grows and grows and grows and grows until it hits critical mass. So that is, I think, something that people should. Silicon Valley is so obsessed with growth and unicorns, but actually what you're doing might be a better way to build a unicorn as well, have the same result, maybe take 3 more years, but you're not going to burn in the middle. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think all of that's on point, right? And you talk to more founders than I do. You know, I have some friends that are founders for sure. Uh, I have to imagine that there's quite a bit of variability in how people think about all of these dynamics. But yeah, for me, certainly number one thing is don't die. I like the feedback from I like that take from YC for sure. Don't die. Keep on playing the game. If you keep on playing the game long enough, you might get lucky. And
Well, it's not luck.
some
Like it's not luck either. Yeah.
exactly right, right. And right, sometimes that's in year one, sometimes that's in year 10. For us, we're most interested in just staying in business for our consumers and helping them out. And we have like a very real consumer base that needs us, and we're serving them every day. That's what we're living for. And so it's a bit of a balancing act for sure. Like we like to be profitable from time to time, right? Which we are, right? We like to just check and make sure that we're actually building a real business that is able to generate profits. Also, at the same time, we like to invest money and go into the J curve, and spend a lot of the money that we raise, right? Use the capital as like a competitive advantage in the space. And certainly for us, like the big vision is very large, where we want to become the company where all debt that is resolved in the US goes through our platform. That's like kind of on the back end. On like the consumer side, we want to be the number one source for consumer like financial and legal needs, whether that is getting advice, like getting tips legally or financial tips from our AI tool that people can use, which is now like our primary free core part of the product, where people can just come in. Uh, as they use the app, they provide very important financial and legal information to us that we keep very secure, and then they can chat with Solo AI to get tips on whatever they need, whether that's like budgeting advice, whether that's to know how much money they spent at Starbucks last month, whether it's they want to now create a will and estate documents, whether they want to create like a start a new lawsuit with somebody. They can use Solo AI to do that. They can also
Wow.
right, like resolve their debt. They can improve their credit. Uh, all kinds of things on the consumer side that we're providing to consumers just to make Solo like their number one spot to go to resolve difficult financial things and legal issues.
It's a very smart strategy too. Once again, you only have smart strategies because you're providing everything for free, if I understand correctly. But then you can see usage. And if you realize, well, it turns out there's a huge market of people who want to start their own will, maybe, then maybe that's your next product. You know there's demand for it. So it's almost a market study for free while giving amazing service to your customers. So it really is a win-win. Just like this settlement that we talked earlier, with it's a win-win between each parties. Do you see this tool, this Solo AI, as this sort of market research tool as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Because with our AI experience, people can give us like what essentially what once upon a time could have been thought of as like just super long tail keywords, essentially, right? Like they can type in anything they want into our AI, and then we can give them tips on in response, and also we can see like what they're interested in, what they actually want us to do. And that's totally been informing the product for us. And for us, we a bit of a contrarian point of view for us is we're pretty contrarian in regards to subscriptions, right? So we don't charge anybody subscriptions.
Oh yeah.
We we have more of an a la carte model, and we focus on building the products really great so that people use multiple parts of our tool. They use multiple parts of the software. So really, even with like the AI tips, we're still focused on an a la carte situation where the consumer can just buy what they want to buy. They don't have to pay you every month. I think that really stems from just me as a founder. Like I hate subscriptions. I think most people do. Like I've never met a person who said, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
wow, thank goodness this product that I love just transitioned
Well,
to
it
a
depends. If
subscription.
if you use it
Right,
a lot and you can subscribe and
right.
you use it every day, then that's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah,
Some
sometimes you use it
things
a
like
few times.
some places it makes sense for the like in B2B software, like it makes sense very much. In
Yeah.
consumer software, I think some like streaming services makes sense, right? You're
Yeah.
using it like every day. You
Spotify
can
or
just like,
something.
yeah, right. Totally makes sense. But I think sometimes I see friends and other founders, to me, trying to put a square peg in a round hole
Yeah. I
where
agree.
consumers really, uh, and most of the, a lot of the best like performing consumer software, it's not a subscription. It's just lets the consumer buy however much of
Yeah.
something they want to
That's
buy.
true. So many times now, I see a tool that I need and they try to push me to the yearly plan. Oh, you're going to save 20%. I actually subscribe for a month. The other day I paid like $8, but sometimes 20 or 50 or
Right.
$100.
Totally.
Do what I have to do like that afternoon and in the evening unsubscribe. And I'm like, okay, I paid 50 bucks. For me, it's like a one time
Right.
almost thing, right? But
Well,
I
right.
agree
Well, I
with
think
you.
the thing, and I think a big part there is that probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably would have been willing to spend a few X multiple of what you paid for that monthly subscription to do the thing that you were doing.
Maybe, yeah.
Right. Right. Like I just used like an AI software, the same deal. Uh, just paid for 1 month of the subscription. I'm canceling. Like I canceled, did the thing that I wanted to do. I canceled. I would have been willing to pay at least probably 10 to 20 times more than what I just paid to do if they
Wow.
just charged me a one-time fee.
Yeah.
But instead, they just wanted the subscription, and I did it, and I cancel.
That's your
And I think
secret
people
to
do that
making
kind of
more
thing all the
money,
time.
I guess.
Right.
Your
Like I
secret
think
to
if you
making more
charge
money.
people just for the specific thing that they want to do, oftentimes they're willing to pay a lot more money for that.
Yeah. And commissions, that's the Airbnb Uber model, and you get a commission, I believe, on the settlement. So that makes sense. Okay, let's move
Yes.
on to our future bets and bold predictions. So I'll tell you some things about the future, and you tell me what you think. So one, let's jump to 2030, 5 years from now. What's Solo doing in 2030 that would sound crazy today?
2030, 5 years ahead, huh? Uh, in 2030, I mean, number one thing is we want to make it so easy to resolve debt that all debts that are collected in the US go through SoloSettle, right? Whether that's like a dentist like collecting on a late payment for medical procedure, like in an accounts receivable situation, or that's a collector suing someone for $200,000 deficiency mortgage debt. We want them all to go through there. We want to make it very easy for the consumer just to come to Solo and see the debts that people say they owe and then pay off all those debts. Uh, we're also, I think at 2030, it'll also be straightforward for consumers just to come to Solo and create any legal document that they want to create using our AI and refining those documents, getting them filed wherever they need to go, and then using our AI like agentic experiences to get tips on their uh, credit report, improving their background checks, improving their finances, budgeting, getting financial tips, all those things. Probably the craziest thing that uh, we'd really love to get into is just more general dispute resolution, so helping people resolve all kinds of disputes anywhere in the world.
You probably have a lot of traffic and authority and knowledge and experience on how to build content that attracts customers. And so you can branch out of everything that you've done related to individual getting sued and getting into professional debt and
Right.
estate planning and all of those other branches. So yeah, you've got a lot of things ahead of you. Okay, what other parts of the legal system are ripe for AI disruption?
Uh, well, what we focus on is making AI, especially for consumers, right? So some of our products certainly providing like AI to the collector. I think consumers feel the most pain out of anybody in the whole legal space. That's what we're focused on. Uh, I think there's a lot to be done still in uh, regards to making court data more accessible, uh, helping people understand case law. So, like an important thing in legal in understanding law is you have like statutes, but you also have case law. And I think for some like sophisticated consumers legally, they might get around to understanding what a statute says. They might be able to go find a law for their state and like read it and find out what that says. But the thing that consumers usually miss is case law and understanding what did the judge say? Like let's say, judge made a ruling on the statute. What did the judge say that statute actually meant? And that's not very accessible for consumers really at all.
All right, super cool. What last one? What does the world look like when Solo wins?
It looks a lot better. It looks a lot better when Solo wins. Uh, I would say that like overall, large problems that we're solving for people is when Solo wins, people will have more legal security. Like they'll feel like their legal boxes are more checked. Something that everybody will be able to check their legal boxes to have good legal health. Also, their financial boxes will be checked. We want to see people have much higher net worth.
No.
Want to have people be more solvent, right? Have a higher ability to pay off their debts. Not only have a better credit score, but also just have a higher net worth, be more wealthy. And we want to make it easier for people to resolve disputes, right? Disputes are so painful for people.
No.
There's a lot of disputes that don't go resolved. There's a lot of disputes that people try to resolve. We just want to make it easier for people to resolve their disputes and live in peace together.
All right, that's cool. This is where we'll end. So you've mentioned the website. I'll repeat it. It's SoloSuit, SoloSuit.com. That's where you should go if you want to ask AI, Solo AI, pretty much anything you want. And it's free, right? Is it free?
It is free. Yeah, yeah.
It's free. It's
It's built
insane.
on ChatGPT. It's built on ChatGPT 4. Just go right to the site uh, and
Insane.
start cranking away. Ask us whatever you want. Right?
Insane
It can
value.
do
And
like the
so,
classic AI stuff. Yep.
sorry. Yeah. So insane value again. It's crazy. Like just anything you have, go to solosuit.com and solo AI. And for listeners who want to follow you specifically, where's the best way to follow you? Is it LinkedIn, X, somewhere else?
Yeah, it's on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm George A. Simons on LinkedIn.
All right, perfect. Well, George, I had an amazing, amazing time. Congratulations on what you're building, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Gabriel.
That was cool. To our listeners, if you're still here, again, I'll ask you to subscribe if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell, and leave us a 5-star review on the favorite podcast platform. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.